Hi guys, welcome to this video. This video is going to be the first of a series of 4 videos I do on the Aerosoft F-14X. And I've chosen to do 4 videos because otherwise one would be excessively long. And the reason I'm going to do 4 is basically because I think this aircraft warrants it, this model warrants it. And it's done by Aerosoft. This is the, in particular, this is the F-14B. You get an F-14 or series of F-14As and F-14Bs. There's a few variations, but the most notable of all of them is the engines. In the A they've got the TF-30, and then in the B they've got, I think it's the F-100. Let me just have a quick look at my notes. I say notes because, sorry, F-110, F-110. I say notes because what I've done is I've gone and researched a document called Navair 01/F14AAD/1. And the reason for that is when I first jumped into this aircraft and flew it, I thought, my God, this thing's awful. Horrendous bit of kit. But what I've actually found is that I've gone away, done a bit of digging and come back, and I've now looked at it with a slightly more critical eye and with a little bit more information. And actually what I can say is it appears to me to be very true to the original. Now I've already done a video on Dino Cattanio's F-14, which is the F-14D. Fantastic model, it is freeware, but I think it'd be very difficult not to, you know, having 2 F-14s available, it would be very difficult not to have any forms of comparison whatsoever. But that's no disrespect to Dino in terms of his aircraft. His aircraft is absolutely fantastic, and as I say, I've done a video on it if you should choose to go and have a look at it. So the 4 sections are going to be the outside of the aircraft and the inside in terms of the modelling and the textures. The second part will be the flight characteristics, which is a fundamental part of this. The third part will be what I'm going to look at in terms of departures, and that's where this aircraft becomes quite difficult. And then the final bit is going to be looking at the equipment, the navigation equipment and that kind of thing. Now this is in FSX, and the immediate question to ask is, well, why haven't I looked at it in Tacpack, which is the, if you like, the military add-on available for FSX stroke. I don't know if it works in P3D, I would have thought it does, but it allows you to actually fight and dogfight with these things. Now the reason I haven't done it in Tacpack is for 2 reasons. Firstly, I don't own it, and secondly, there is enough about this aircraft that is challenging that actually just working with it in FSX and P3D is rewarding in its own right. And not everyone's going to want to dogfight these things, so in deference to that, I'm just doing it in FSX and P3D at the moment. Now, the second thing that could be levelled at it is looking at it in terms of its systems accuracy and accuracy of flight model. Now, I know I saw a thing on a forum where somebody was having a go at, well, not having a go, but expressing an opinion is a better way of describing it in terms of the Aerosoft Airbus, and they were saying they weren't happy with Aerosoft products. Now, I've got nothing to do with Aerosoft. In fact, I've got nothing to do with any company who designs or manufactures these things. But I think I'm also going to just declare that my opinion of these things is to put them into the context of what the objective is, what these things are designed to do. And so, for example, the Aerosoft Airbus X is not designed with the same sort of, if you like, rationale as the PMDG 737. PMDG 737 is designed to mimic and copy every single aspect of that airliner in extensive detail. However, the Aerosoft one, for my opinion, is modelled with a view to the experience of flying the thing, which is why it comes with its integrated FS to crew, so you get a better crew experience, and you can decide whether you want automated checklists, whether you want a crew member to read them out, or just do your own thing. This is the same kind of thing, because I wanted to look at it with a very objective viewpoint, allied to my subjective opinions, and specifically to look at it with within the context of what did Aerosoft want us to experience from this aircraft. Now, one of the key things, it's a fighter jet. It's actually more of a fleet interceptor. It was designed to intercept aircraft well in advance of the fleet that might be a threat to it, and to deal with them, which is why it's got the, or had, used the AIM-54 air-to-air missile, which has a range of over 100 miles. The validity of it, whether it would have worked or not, is a whole separate discussion. But moving on, I'm going to have a look at the outside and then the inside in this video, and then, as I say, the next video will have the flight characteristics, which is quite an important one, and I would urge you to look further at that. And then the third one is going to be departures. And departures with this aircraft are critical. It's kind of hand in hand with the flight characteristics, but if I were to do both at the same time, you would see why it needs to be split up. So looking at the outside, Aerosoft are renowned for high quality exterior modelling. And this is no different in terms of the quality. It looks absolutely glorious. And if you look at the canopy as the first example, you can see the light reflections off it. You can see it as it moves around. It's got a lovely tinting to it. You know, it's just all-round glorious. And if I open the canopy, you'll also see the movement, which is correct in terms of it moving back a couple of inches and then lifting up. You can see the panelling underneath now, and you can see the sort of part of the lift mechanism there. And then inside the cockpit, you know, from this position, looks glorious. Looks nice and detailed. You've got the aircrew who look slightly wide-eyed and scary. You can see the different colorations around the front of the canopy here. You know, it's glorious. I do like some of the lighting effects. Now, the lighting effects in P3D are more impressive than they are here, I have to say. However, this is FSX. If you like, this is the lowest common denominator, and anything in P3D is arguably better than this. However, you get a nice light sheen off the rounded edges and surfaces, and you can see as you move around it changes and shifts on the aircraft, and it's all very good stuff. And here you've got the wing surfaces as well, which are nicely animated. Control surfaces again are nicely animated, so we'll talk through those in a second. Engine petals, for want of a better way of putting it, I think they are actually referred to as petals, from what my memory serves me, are nicely animated, and you know, the standard of exterior modelling is fantastic, and you can go into quite a lot of detail in terms of what they've done with this. So the bitmap, 2D bit mapping is excellent. It blends very well with the 3D. You can see there's a lovely 3D effect here to the gloves. In fact, some of the panels aren't even quite perfect in terms of how they're lying. You've got a very nice set of detailing on the top of the fuselage here, and there's lovely little details like the intake ramps of the engines are variable. Generally they're used in auto. You can use them manually, but generally used in auto. If you see here, these are vents which are on top of the inlets. They're part of the air control mechanism, but the actual ramps for the vents, you can see the ram here, and within it you can see it's actually hollow. It's clearly hollow. You can see the ground beneath it. Lovely 3D effects on the strakes over the top of the wings. Lovely visuals in terms of the leading edge slats and the trailing edge flaps. You can see the mechanisms. If I move the stick, you can also see the ram mechanisms for the spoilers on top of the wing. You can see the movement, differential movement of the elevons as well. Strakes underneath. You can see the landing gear is beautifully designed with tie-down hooks, brake pipes, and the 6 piston brakes there. And again, you can see the over-centre latch mechanism here. I mentioned it on Dino's aircraft. It's quite evident here. You can see it's just off straight. And basically what's happened is the ram makes sure that it's locked in position. Noticeably very, very hefty landing gear. Look at the build of that. That thing is monstrous. The reason being is this thing weighs 30-odd tons. And they don't flare when they land on an aircraft carrier. They do not flare. So they hit the deck at one heck of a whack. If they flared, they'd potentially float and they'd miss the cables. They'd be off the end of the carrier and there'd be lots of tears following the ejection, no doubt. But the textures, the 3D modelling are fantastic, but there are some lovely little touches that you may not appreciate at first glance. And I shall show you them here. The first one is this little flashing light. Now if I go back into the cockpit, you'll see here there's a little black area. Now normally for landing this has 3 lights. It will have a green down arrow at the top, a yellow donut as it's called in the middle, and a red up arrow. And you can also see it replicated here. And the other figure that's very important during landing and takeoff with these things are these 2 numbers here, which are the angle of attack alpha units. Now there's a very thick line here at 15 degrees. When a carrier aircraft comes in to land, it lands based on its alpha, which, if you like, is the angle at which the airflow is hitting the wings. And it's very important because they control the speed, they control the alpha, and they control the glide path. And they land at 15 units, so you'd have 15 here. The waterline here, which is the circle one, sorry, the waterline is the W, but the circle one is the flight path vector. You want that in the middle of that indicator there, which the indicator moves up and down. And then you'd want your yellow stroke orange donut here. But going outside, you can see the lights are replicated. So you've got the green at the top, the amber in the middle, the red at the bottom. And the landing signals officer, who stands on the carrier flight deck, helps the pilot in terms of guiding them in. And you can see that they've got a replication of what the pilot would see with the green, amber and red. And that gives them a visual indicator as to whether the pilot's on glide slope, etc. So the level of detail there is fantastic. You'll also notice that the front of noses of this era of aircraft had a black matte finish, anti-shine. Some lovely details and some lovely elements to this. The next piece of exterior modelling, which is quite fantastic, is, let's go in here, let's go down here, and this switch here. Let me get it in the right sense. Let's get it to kneel. Obviously didn't click it well enough. Let's get it to, that's extend, that's why. Let's get it to kneel. This is operator error as opposed to the aircraft, in fairness. Kneel. No, it's not going to do it. Maybe I need to extend it first. Extend it to go off, and then let's try and kneel it. No, it's not playing. Normally it does. Oh, I know why it's not going to be doing it. Let me have a look at these flaps. See if it does it now. Because basically a lot of the controls in this are interlinked, and they're interlinked quite correctly. You know, the element of it is it does have a very good, very important to read manual. No, it's not playing. I don't know why. For whatever reason, it's not playing. It does work, I can assure you it does work, but there we go. The carrier hook works as you would expect, so when you do that, go outside, you can see it's there. And it's all, you know, it's all lovely modelling. I cannot fault it, really, in terms of the exterior modelling. Whether or not, actually, I reckon I know why that's not working, is this aircraft can be used in FSX P3D. The FSX modelling enables it to be used in Service Pack 1, Service Pack 2, Gold and Acceleration. However, the carrier landing facilities and the carrier catapult launch facilities can only be used in FSX Acceleration, Gold and P3D. P3D version 2, I don't know if it works in version 1. So there's a very good probability that because this is SP2 I'm running it in, that's why it's not doing its silly kneel down with the launch bar. I can assure you I've used it in P3D, it does work, and these things work very well on the carrier. And I've done a carrier deck tutorial stroke talk through with Dino Catanios. At some point when I get a chance I'll do the same with this. So really that's the exterior. Now we're inside, let's have a look at what's inside. There are some very nice touches. You'll see at the moment the wings are swept fully forwards. I think it's 20 degrees forwards they sweep, generally used for takeoff and landing. The F-14 is very nicely equipped with auto sweep. However, you've got a manual override here, and quite often for carrier deck landings it will for carrier operations when it's on the deck, you'll see it in the fully swept position like this. It does oversweep. It's not modelled in this per se, but it does oversweep for even greater folding capacity on an aircraft carrier. But generally speaking, you would use it in auto. So let's move that up, close the guard, and it's back into auto. And you see the wings. The wings work on the combination of airspeed and angle of attack, so they're fully automatic and they move themselves around. And you'll hear them going whoosh, clunk as they move around. Flap lever, throttles are exactly as you would expect. When you shut the engine off, they go into a reverse position. You can just right click on them. I'm not going to do it now because I can't be bothered to do an engine start. Autopilot down here, AFCS. Now this is critically important. We'll go through a couple of bits of this when we do the flying dynamics. Air start is if you have an air cart attached. You've got various throttle modes and assistance setups here. Now, because it's quite hard to land on a carrier, this switch is part of the throttle auto mode. It's not an auto throttle the same as, say, an airliner would have, but what it does is you've got the opportunity to use a thing called DLC, which is a landing control system, and it links the throttles to the spoilers and the flaps. And basically what happens is it becomes a semi-auto throttle, and it helps the pilot with control of the flight path primarily. You've got all your indicators for your spoilers and various things. It does do things like fuel dump. It does. I mean, basically, I'm not going to use a lot of the controls in this. I'm not going to do the emergency stores jettison because we haven't got any, for example. But you've got your undercarriage flaps and slats indicators. You've got all the gauges. They all work exactly as you would expect. These are your standby instruments because your primary instruments are obviously on your HUD. You do have a tactical display down here. You also have your, at the moment, your HUD. When I go through the systems, I'll go through these again, but fundamentally, the primary flight display you would be using is the HUD. Airspeed, alpha. It comes up with more information when you go into different modes, and this is your altitude. So you've got your radalt at the bottom, or sorry, at the top as well, 0R for radalt, 270 feet as your bar alt. You've got your pitch ladder. As I say here, you've got your angle of attack and you've got your heading across the top, and this is your angle of bank. All very good stuff. You've got your old school nav instruments down here. This thing has TACAN. If I can find it, TACAN command down here with your VHF, UHF setups. You've got your radios complete with guard, basically guard manual and presets. Here, there's your TACAN, sorry, in terms of your modes as well. So you've got your TACAN and sort of pilot audio here, and you've got your TACAN actual controls here. This is one of my bugbears down here, is the caution and warning panel. And you can see how light the writing is on there. Now I have the problem that when I, let's see if we can do it, turn the generator off, you can see how faint the lighting is. I've had a problem in P3D where, because of the lighting in P3D, what happens is I can't see it. I cannot read what's on these. I get a big orange or red caption light, but I can't read it. It's just unreadable, and that's just something to do with the lighting effects. It may just be the way I've got it set up. It may be something to do with P3D, but there we go. Gun rounds, and one of the things I'd highlight here at this point is this this aircraft is 70s and 80s vintage, so there is a certain amount of lack of coordination, should I say, in terms of instrument layout. So compared to a modern day aircraft where you've got a lot of assistance in terms of organisation, this is less so. So you've got instruments dotted all around the place. A classic example is you've got some of your flight indicators here. You've got more of your flight indicators here. You've got your navigation here, your radar warning receiver, your oxygen here, and then you've got your gun rounds next to your hook handle, which seems a very bizarre place to have them. You can alter your displays on your HUD, so your HUD displays can change as you go around air to air, air to ground, and you can see it changes down here in terms of the tactical setup, air to air mode, air to ground. What's noticeable is the sticks removed on the basis that actually in air to ground the pilot really is dependent on the navigator for most of their targeting information if they're doing air to ground, unless it's something where it's visual bombing, for example. Landing systems, and so on and so forth. So, you know, there's a lot to play with here. Take off, put it into cruise. You can actually declutter everything. You can see where it flashes up. These modes are all available to you. You can power on the HUD, the HSI, etc. And then you've got your navigation steering commands, so how you want it, what you want to steer, for example, in relation to the TACAN. Spoiler information, caution warning panel, lighting, air conditioning. Now this becomes crucial if you have to do engine starts, because you can see, if I zoom in a bit, you've got ram air, you've got left engine, right engine, both engines off, and this is where you draw your air from. Very important in terms of starting an engine, because what you can do is you can use the air in a cross configuration. So if your left engine was out, you'd be able to draw your air from the right engine. That allows you to use that air to then crank the left engine and start the left engine. Very important if you have a double flame out. That is modelled in this aircraft, the double flame out. You can, those of you who've watched Top Gun with its infamous engine 1's flamed out, engine 2's flamed out, he's going in a flat spin out to sea, and they eject and Goose gets killed and all that kind of bit. This models it. You can get this into a flat spin. Now, I'm being a bit of a chicken here. This is the F-14B. This is the one with the 110 turbofans, the F-110s. The reason for that is that I'm a chicken. The TF30 turbofans on the Model A are incredibly easy if you mishandle the aircraft to cause compressor stalls and to flame out. And if you have a double flame out, there is a recovery method, a recovery technique, but it takes at least 5,000 feet. And it's not a good day out. So the aircraft goes all over the place, and you then have to try and figure out how to do it. What I'm going to do is, when I do the video on departures, I will be having a look at stalling, because it's unique stall characteristics. It does not stall like another aircraft. We will have a look at departures at high and low angles of attack, and so on and so forth. Because it does do it. This aircraft bites. And this is where it comes back round in a circle to what Aerosoft have looked at in terms of designing this. This aircraft, a 737 has a very unique set of flying characteristics, but, well, I say unique. A lot of airliners have a certain amount of commonality built in. They have dihedral, they've got a lot of stability. You know, they're designed with safety in mind. This is a fighter, and it was designed for the edge of its aerodynamic limits at the time of its design. So that's all I'm going to say on this part of the video, guys. Feel free to leave comments, like or subscribe. What I'm going to do with the next bit of video, the next chunk, is go and look at the flight characteristics, because that's critical to this aircraft, and it's one of the things that makes this aircraft. So I shall speak to you guys soon, and in the meantime, take care.